Hey, welcome. Right now, happening just over our heads, something is going on that is, well, it's genuinely historic. There's a total transformation of our sky happening at a pace that's almost hard to believe, and today we're going to break down exactly what's going on. So let's just start with a number, 5,184. Now, that is the total count of operational satellites that are up there right now for the United States alone. I mean, just think about that. It's an absolutely staggering figure that has just exploded in the last few years. But here's where it gets really interesting. You have to ask, who is putting all this stuff into orbit? And as you can see, more than 90% of it is commercial. This is not your grandfather's space race. This is a full-blown, private sector gold rush. So, that's the big question, right? What exactly happened? What forces all came together to kick off this crazy satellite boom? Well, it really boils down to three key drivers that are all feeding each other. First up, the tech. For decades, space was just way too expensive for pretty much anyone but a superpower. But then, a couple of major breakthroughs completely flipped the script on the economics of just getting to orbit. The number one game changer, without a doubt, has been reusable rockets. I mean, think about it like this. Imagine you had to buy a brand new 747 just to fly from New York to London, and then you just toss it into the ocean at the end. That's literally how space travel used to work. Now, companies can land and refly the most expensive parts, which basically turns space launch from a one-and-done deal into an actual transportation service. And these numbers right here, they really tell the story. Just by recovering and reusing those key parts, a single launch can be up to 65% cheaper. I mean, this didn't just lower the barrier to entry for space, it completely obliterated it. I love this quote because it just perfectly captures the new philosophy, right? The goal isn't to build one single, perfect, handcrafted machine anymore. It's about mass production, it's about high tempo, it's about turning rocket launches into a routine, almost industrial process. Now, the second piece of this tech puzzle is miniaturization. So at the same time, rockets were getting cheaper to fly. The satellites themselves were getting way smaller, way cheaper, and way faster to build. We've literally gone from satellites the size of a school bus to satellites that can fit in the palm of your hand. And this creates this really awesome feedback loop. Because you're using standard off-the-shelf parts, you can build them super fast. And because they're so small and standardized, you can pack dozens of them onto a single rocket, basically creating a rideshare to orbit that makes it even cheaper for everybody involved. Okay, so the tech has basically kicked the door to orbit wide open. But what's pulling us through it? Cheaper rockets are great, but you still need a really good reason to go to space. So what are the killer apps that are driving this multi-trillion-dollar demand? The first, and by far the biggest, is global internet. For years, satellite internet was, well, it was awful. It was slow, it was laggy, because the satellites were really, really far away. The solution? Build these gigantic constellations of thousands of satellites in what's called low Earth orbit, or LEO. And the scale of these ambitions is it's mind-boggling. We're not talking about a handful of satellites here. We're talking about plans for tens of thousands of them, from all these different global players, all racing to build the internet backbone of the future, in the sky. And this isn't some future fantasy, okay? The market is absolutely booming right now. I mean, look at this. In just the last year, revenues jumped almost 30%, and subscriptions exploded by nearly 50%. That kind of growth is what justifies these huge investments and just keeps fueling the demand for more and more launches. All right, the second killer app is the massive demand for real-time data about our own planet. Companies, governments, they are lining up to pay billions for a constant, high-resolution feed of what's happening down here on Earth. And what's this data for? Well, pretty much everything. It helps us track climate change in real time, it lets farmers manage their fields with unbelievable precision, and it provides absolutely vital intelligence for things like city planning and, of course, national security. What it really means is that today's users, they can't afford to wait days or weeks for a picture anymore. It doesn't matter if you're a general or a firefighter, you need to see what's changing on the ground as it happens. That demand for constant updates for seeing things at the speed of conflict is something only these huge satellite constellations can deliver. So let's get to our third and final driver, because this isn't just about making money.
For the major powers of the world, having a huge presence in space has become an absolute, non-negotiable strategic priority.
It's so easy to forget this, but our entire modern world runs on these invisible signals beaming down from space, from systems like GPS. And it's not just about the maps on your phone. That system provides the super precise timing signals that keep our cell networks, our financial markets, and even our power grids all synchronized. The economic values it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. In the US alone, the GPS system has created about $1.7 trillion in economic benefits since it went live. That's trillion with a T. But here's the flip side. That incredible dependence is also a huge vulnerability. If GPS just blinked out tomorrow, estimates say it would cost the US economy about $1 billion a day. Every single day it was out. That's why protecting and upgrading these systems is an absolute top priority.
And look, in a world where you have things like anti-satellite missiles, the best defense is just to spread everything out. Instead of having a few big, expensive satellites that make for really juicy targets, the new strategy is to launch thousands of smaller ones. You create a network that is resilient by its very nature. Losing 1 or 5 or even 10 of them doesn't crash the whole system.
So when you put all those pieces together, the tech, the demand, the strategy, you start to get a really clear picture of why this whole orbital revolution is happening right now and what it might mean for all of us. So, just to sum it all up, what we have here is a perfect storm. The technology made it possible, the huge commercial markets made it profitable, and fierce global competition made it an absolute necessity. All three of those forces are hitting at the exact same time. But, and this is a big but, this incredible boom has a serious downside. Our skies are getting crowded, and they're getting crowded fast. Orbital positions are becoming like strategic real estate, and it's raising the very real risk of collisions and creating more space junk. There's even a nightmare scenario for this. It's called the Kessler syndrome, which is basically a chain reaction of collisions that can make parts of orbit totally unusable for generations. And even with those challenges, this trend toward cheaper and cheaper access to space, it's not slowing down. I mean, with some projections putting launch costs as low as $20 per kilogram, you have to ask yourself, what becomes possible when getting to orbit is cheaper than shipping something by air? And that's when you start getting into stuff that sounds like pure science fiction. We're talking about things like orbital rings, these massive structures in orbit that could act like a highway to space, or skyhooks, giant spinning tethers that could just pluck things out of the atmosphere. This is the stuff that could unlock a real in-space economy, built on mining asteroids and beaming solar power back to Earth. So as amazing as this current satellite rush is, it really might be just the beginning. Thanks for tuning in.